Captain David Bell stared at the memorial wall where Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez's name was etched in black granite. Officially killed in action 10 years ago. But when his unit was ambushed in the Wadi Mountains and saved by a ghost sniper's perfect shots, Bell began to suspect the impossible that his mentor was still alive and fighting her own war. The Wadi Mountains stretched across the Afghanistan-Pakistan border like a jagged spine of limestone and regret, their peaks shrouded in mist that seemed to hold the ghosts of every soldier who had died in their shadows. The terrain was unforgiving narrow passes that funneled patrols into kill zones, caves that could hide entire enemy units, and ridge lines that offered perfect sniper positions for those who knew how to use them. For 10 years, this region had been a graveyard for American forces, claiming lives with the methodical efficiency of a well-oiled machine, yet somehow producing survival stories that defied explanation. Captain David Bell moved through the mountain passes with the careful precision of someone who had learned that carelessness in this terrain was a death sentence. At 34, he carried the weight of command and the deeper burden of survivor's guilt that had shaped every decision he'd made since losing his mentor in these same mountains a decade earlier. His weathered face bore the lines of someone who had seen too much, and his eyes held the constant vigilance of a soldier who understood that the next ridge could be his last. Bell's relationship with the Wadi Mountains was deeply personal, rooted in the loss of Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, the sniper who had trained him, protected him, and ultimately died saving his life during his first deployment. Maya had been more than a mentor. She had been the kind of soldier who embodied everything Bell believed the military should represent: skill, honor, and an unwavering commitment to bringing everyone home alive. The official report stated that Maya had been killed by enemy fire while providing overwatch for Bell's evacuation. Her body lost in a rock slide that made recovery impossible. But something about that day had never felt right to Bell. A nagging sense that the story he'd been told didn't match what he remembered from those chaotic final moments before his medical evacuation. The challenge that would transform Bell's understanding of truth and justice came in the form of evidence that suggested his mentor's death had been fabricated, forcing him to choose between accepting official narratives and pursuing a truth that could destroy his career while exposing corruption that reached the highest levels of military command. The situation would test whether loyalty to fallen comrades was stronger than loyalty to institutions, and whether the pursuit of justice was worth risking everything he had worked to achieve in his military career. The opportunity for Bell to uncover the truth about Maya's fate came when he was assigned to lead a reconnaissance mission in the same sector of the Wadi Mountains where she had supposedly died, a routine patrol that would take his unit through terrain that held powerful memories and unresolved questions. The mission briefing was standard: gather intelligence on enemy movement patterns, assess the security of supply routes, and report any unusual activity in the region. Bell's decision to accept the assignment was motivated by more than professional duty. It represented a chance to revisit the site of Maya's disappearance and perhaps find closure for questions that had haunted him for a decade. The official investigation into her death had been classified and brief, leaving him with fragments of information that never quite formed a complete picture. The choice to return to the Wadi Mountains also reflected Bell's evolution as a leader and his understanding that sometimes the most important missions were the ones that weren't officially sanctioned. His experience had taught him that the military's version of events wasn't always complete, and that soldiers sometimes had to seek their own answers to questions that official channels couldn't or wouldn't address. The decision carried significant personal risk, as reopening questions about a classified operation could attract unwanted attention and potentially damage his career. But Bell's commitment to understanding what had really happened to his mentor outweighed his concerns about professional consequences. Bell's approach to the reconnaissance mission was methodical and comprehensive, incorporating both his official objectives and his personal investigation into Maya's disappearance. His plan involved conducting the assigned intelligence gathering, while also searching for any evidence that might shed light on what had actually happened during that fateful operation 10 years earlier. The strategy required careful balance between fulfilling his military responsibilities and pursuing his personal investigation, ensuring that his unit's safety and mission success remained the top priorities, while creating opportunities to examine the terrain and circumstances of Maya's supposed death. Bell's preparation included studying classified reports, interviewing personnel who had been involved in the original operation, and developing a detailed understanding of the tactical situation that had led to Maya's disappearance. His plan also involved utilizing his unit's expertise to conduct a thorough examination of the area where Maya had supposedly fallen, using advanced equipment and techniques that hadn't been available during the original search efforts. The approach reflected Bell's understanding that new technology and fresh perspectives might reveal evidence that had been missed or overlooked during the initial investigation. The strategy was designed to appear routine to his superiors, while providing maximum opportunity to uncover new information about one of the most painful episodes in Bell's military career. Bell's first challenge came during the mission planning phase, when he discovered that many of the records related to Maya's final operation had been classified at levels that prevented him from accessing crucial details about the tactical situation, enemy disposition, and the specific circumstances of her death. The classification restrictions suggested that there were aspects of the operation that remained sensitive even after 10 years. His initial attempts to gather information through official channels were met with polite but firm denials, as personnel cited security protocols and the need to protect ongoing operations. The responses were professional, but carried undertones that suggested he was pursuing questions that made some people uncomfortable. Bell's first breakthrough came when he contacted Sergeant Major Williams, a veteran NCO who had been involved in the original search and recovery efforts. Williams was initially reluctant to discuss the operation, but his respect for Bell and his understanding of the bond between mentor and student eventually led him to share details that hadn't appeared in official reports. "Captain," Williams said, during a private conversation, "there were things about that day that never made sense to me. The enemy fire patterns, the timing of the rock slide, the fact that we never found any trace of her gear. It was like she just vanished." The first day of Bell's reconnaissance mission in the Wadi Mountains brought immediate confirmation that the region remained as dangerous as ever, with his unit encountering signs of recent enemy activity and evidence of sophisticated surveillance that suggested they were being watched from the moment they entered the contested territory. The terrain was exactly as Bell remembered, treacherous, unforgiving, and perfectly suited for the kind of asymmetric warfare that had claimed so many American lives. As his team moved through the narrow passes and exposed ridgelines, Bell found himself constantly scanning the high ground for sniper positions, his training and experience making him acutely aware of how vulnerable they were to attack from concealed positions. The weight of command was particularly heavy in this environment, where a single wrong decision could result in catastrophic casualties. The emotional impact of returning to the place where Maya had died was more intense than Bell had anticipated, as familiar landmarks triggered memories of their time together and the training she had provided that had kept him alive through multiple deployments. Her voice seemed to echo in his mind, offering the tactical advice and encouragement that had shaped him into the officer he had become. The first day also brought subtle signs that something was different about this patrol, small details that suggested they were being observed by someone with professional training and capabilities that exceeded typical enemy surveillance methods. The attention that Bell's mission attracted came from multiple sources, including enemy forces who had been monitoring American patrol patterns in the region, and what appeared to be a third party whose interest in the unit's movements was more sophisticated and purposeful than typical insurgent surveillance. The signs were subtle but unmistakable to someone with Bell's experience, movement patterns that suggested professional military training, observation techniques that indicated advanced tactical knowledge, and a level of coordination that exceeded what local enemy forces typically demonstrated. The external attention also came from within the military hierarchy, as Bell's mission had attracted notice from intelligence personnel who were tracking activities in the region and monitoring communications for any unusual patterns or developments. His request for access to classified materials related to Maya's operation had triggered automated security protocols that flagged his activities for review. Most intriguingly, there were signs that someone with extensive knowledge of American tactical procedures was observing his unit's movements with what appeared to be protective rather than hostile intent. The observations were so subtle that only someone with Bell's training and experience would have noticed them, but they suggested the presence of a friendly observer whose capabilities and motivations remained unknown. The major breakthrough came on the second day of the mission, when Bell's unit was ambushed by a well-coordinated enemy force that had positioned snipers on multiple ridgelines to create an inescapable kill zone. The attack was sophisticated and deadly, with enemy marksmen demonstrating the kind of training and equipment that suggested foreign military support and extensive preparation. Bell's team found themselves pinned down in a narrow valley with no cover and no apparent escape route, facing accurate fire from at least 4 different positions that had been carefully selected to provide overlapping fields of fire. The situation was desperate, with casualties mounting and ammunition running low as the enemy maintained their advantage through superior positioning and firepower. But just as the situation seemed hopeless, the enemy fire began to slacken as the hostile snipers were systematically eliminated by an unknown marksman whose shots were so precise and rapid that Bell initially assumed they were receiving: support from an unannounced friendly unit. The enemy positions were neutralized one by one with single, perfectly placed shots that demonstrated the kind of marksmanship that Bell had only seen from the most elite military snipers. The rescue was so professional and efficient that it left Bell's unit stunned and grateful, but also deeply curious about the identity of their mysterious savior. As Bell processed what had happened during the ambush and the miraculous intervention that had saved his unit, he began to suspect that the unknown sniper's capabilities and tactics were familiar in ways that triggered memories of his training with Maya Rodriguez. The precision of the shots, the tactical awareness demonstrated in target selection, and the timing of the intervention all suggested someone with the kind of advanced training that Maya had possessed. The preparation for investigating this possibility required Bell to balance his official responsibilities with his growing conviction that Maya might still be alive and operating in the region. His approach involved careful analysis of the ballistics evidence from the ambush site, comparison of the unknown sniper's tactics with Maya's known methods, and development of a plan to make contact if his suspicions proved correct. The preparation also included consideration of the implications. If Maya was indeed alive, questions about why she had allowed herself to be declared dead, what she had been doing for the past 10 years, and whether her survival was connected to the classified aspects of her original mission that had never been fully explained. Bell's preparation reflected his understanding that pursuing this investigation could have consequences that extended far beyond his personal quest for answers, potentially exposing sensitive operations and challenging official narratives that powerful people preferred to keep buried. The crisis that would force Bell to confront the truth about Maya's fate erupted when his investigation into the mysterious sniper attracted the attention of Colonel Harrison, the officer who had commanded the operation during which Maya had supposedly died. Harrison's interest in Bell's activities was immediate and aggressive, suggesting that Bell's questions were threatening to expose information that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. "Captain Bell," Harrison said during an unexpected visit to Bell's forward operating base, "I understand you've been asking questions about an operation that was classified and closed 10 years ago. I'm here to remind you that some matters are best left undisturbed, especially when they involve sensitive national security issues." The warning was delivered with the kind of authority that made it clear this was not a suggestion, but a direct order to cease his investigation. Harrison's presence at the remote base and his obvious knowledge of Bell's activities suggested that his investigation had triggered responses from the highest levels of command. But the crisis deepened when Bell realized that Harrison's visit coincided with increased enemy activity in the region and what appeared to be deliberate attempts to expose his unit to additional danger. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental, suggesting that someone was using his unit as bait to flush out the mysterious sniper who had been protecting American forces in the area. The situation forced Bell to choose between following orders to abandon his investigation and protecting his unit from what appeared to be a deliberate attempt to use them as expendable assets in a larger operation whose objectives remained unclear. The pivotal moment came when Bell made the decision to deliberately expose his unit to danger in order to draw out the mysterious sniper, gambling that his suspicions about Maya's survival were correct and that she would intervene to protect American soldiers even if it meant revealing her continued existence. The plan was desperate and dangerous, requiring him to place his soldiers in harm's way based on nothing more than intuition and hope. Bell's strategy involved conducting a patrol through terrain that was known to be heavily monitored by enemy forces, following routes and timing that would make his unit an attractive target, while positioning them in areas where a skilled sniper could provide effective overwatch. The approach required careful balance between creating genuine danger and maintaining enough tactical advantage to survive if his assumptions proved wrong. The moment of truth came when enemy forces took the bait and launched a coordinated attack on Bell's exposed unit, creating exactly the kind of crisis that would force the mysterious sniper to reveal herself if she was indeed Maya Rodriguez. The attack was more intense than Bell had anticipated, with enemy forces demonstrating the kind of coordination and firepower that suggested they had been planning this operation for some time. But as enemy fire began to find its mark, and Bell's unit faced the possibility of being overrun, the familiar sound of precision rifle fire began to eliminate enemy positions with the kind of accuracy and tactical awareness that Bell recognized from his training with Maya. The intervention was so timely and effective that it confirmed his suspicions while saving his unit from what could have been a catastrophic defeat. The pivotal nature of the moment was enhanced when Bell caught a glimpse of the sniper's position and recognized movement patterns and shooting techniques that were unmistakably Maya's, confirming that his mentor was not only alive but had been protecting American forces in the region for years. The turning point came when Maya Rodriguez stepped out of concealment and revealed herself to Bell, ending 10 years of official death and unofficial guardianship of American forces operating in the Wadi Mountains. Her appearance was shocking, older, weathered by years of living rough in hostile territory, but unmistakably the mentor who had shaped Bell's understanding of military service and professional excellence. "Oh, hello, David," she said simply, her voice carrying the weight of a decade of isolation and the burden of secrets that had kept her hidden from the world. "I've been watching your career. You've become the kind of officer I always knew you could be." The reunion was emotional, but brief, as Maya's survival raised immediate questions about why she had allowed herself to be declared dead and what she had been doing during the years when the military believed she was gone. Her explanation would reveal a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of command and threatened to destroy everything Bell believed about military honor and institutional integrity. The turning point was complete when Maya revealed that her supposed death had been staged to protect her from assassination by the same officers who had sent her unit into an ambush designed to eliminate witnesses to a weapons trafficking operation that had been using American military resources to arm enemy forces. The final preparation for exposing the conspiracy that had kept Maya in hiding required careful coordination between her decade of accumulated evidence and Bell's access to current military systems and personnel. Maya had spent 10 years documenting the weapons trafficking operation, gathering proof of the corruption that had led to her unit's sacrifice, and building a case that could bring down the officers responsible for betraying American soldiers. Her preparation included detailed records of weapons shipments, financial transactions, and communications that proved Colonel Harrison and his associates had been selling American military equipment to enemy forces while using their positions to eliminate anyone who might expose their activities. The evidence was comprehensive but required validation through official channels that only someone with Bell's access and credibility could provide. The preparation also involved developing a strategy for presenting the evidence in ways that would protect both Maya and Bell from retaliation while ensuring that the guilty parties faced appropriate justice. The approach required careful timing and coordination with trustworthy personnel who could provide protection and support during the exposure process. Maya's preparation reflected her understanding that revealing herself and her evidence would trigger responses from powerful people who had spent years protecting their criminal activities and eliminating threats to their operations. Despite the overwhelming evidence of corruption and the clear need for justice, Bell experienced moments of doubt about the wisdom of challenging such powerful enemies and the potential consequences for both his career and his life. The conspiracy involved high-ranking officers with the resources and connections necessary to destroy anyone who threatened their operations, making the pursuit of justice extremely dangerous. Bell's doubt was also influenced by his recognition that exposing the conspiracy would likely end his military career and potentially place him in physical danger from people who had already demonstrated their willingness to kill to protect their secrets. The personal cost of seeking justice seemed enormous compared to the alternative of maintaining silence and continuing his successful career. But his doubt was ultimately overcome by his commitment to Maya's memory and his understanding that military honor required him to expose corruption, even when doing so involved personal sacrifice and professional risk. The climactic confrontation began when Bell and Maya presented their evidence to the Inspector General's office, triggering an investigation that would either vindicate their claims or destroy their credibility and potentially their lives. The pressure was enormous as they faced interrogation from investigators who were initially skeptical of claims that seemed to challenge the integrity of senior military leadership. The presentation of evidence required Bell to risk his career and reputation by supporting Maya's accusations against respected officers whose guilt would shock the military establishment. The pressure was compounded by the knowledge that Colonel Harrison and his associates were likely aware of the investigation and were probably taking steps to protect themselves and eliminate threats to their operations. The high-stakes nature of the confrontation was enhanced by the understanding that failure to prove their case could result in charges against both Bell and Maya for making false accusations against superior officers, while success could expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of military command. The initial challenges of proving the conspiracy involved overcoming institutional resistance to believing that respected officers could be guilty of such serious crimes, as well as the sophisticated efforts that Harrison and his associates had made to cover their tracks and eliminate evidence of their activities. The investigators' skepticism was understandable given the seriousness of the accusations and the potential impact on military morale and public confidence. Additional challenges arose from the fact that much of Maya's evidence had been gathered through unofficial means during her years in hiding, creating questions about its admissibility and reliability that the conspirators' lawyers would certainly exploit. The passage of time had also allowed the guilty parties to destroy evidence and eliminate witnesses who might have supported Maya's claims. The challenges were compounded by attempts at intimidation and interference from Harrison's associates, who used their positions and connections to pressure investigators and create obstacles to the investigation's progress. The critical moment came when Bell's access to current military databases allowed investigators to verify Maya's evidence and uncover additional proof of the conspiracy that the guilty parties had believed was safely hidden. His cooperation provided the missing links that transformed Maya's accusations from unsubstantiated claims into a comprehensive case that could withstand legal scrutiny. The breakthrough occurred when Bell's analysis of current weapons inventory records revealed discrepancies that matched Maya's documentation of illegal shipments, providing independent confirmation of her claims and establishing a pattern of criminal activity that had continued even after her supposed death. The evidence was so compelling that it forced investigators to take the allegations seriously and expand their investigation. The critical nature of the moment was enhanced when additional witnesses came forward. Encouraged by the credibility that Bell's involvement brought to Maya's accusations, these witnesses provided testimony that corroborated key aspects of the conspiracy and filled gaps in the evidence that had previously weakened the case. The moment represented the point at which the conspiracy began to unravel. As the weight of evidence became too substantial for even powerful defendants to dismiss or discredit through their usual methods of intimidation and influence, the moment of complete victory came when Colonel Harrison and his associates were arrested and charged with treason, weapons trafficking, and conspiracy to commit murder. Their decades of criminal activity finally exposed through the combined efforts of Maya's patient investigation and Bell's courageous decision to risk everything for justice. The arrests validated Maya's sacrifice and vindicated Bell's faith in the importance of pursuing truth regardless of personal cost. The victory was enhanced by the military's public acknowledgment of Maya's service and sacrifice, as she was posthumously promoted and honored for her decade-long investigation that had exposed corruption and protected countless American soldiers from the consequences of treasonous leadership. Bell's role in exposing the conspiracy was recognized through official commendation, though his career was effectively ended by his decision to challenge powerful enemies who still had allies within the military hierarchy. The personal cost was significant, but the achievement of justice made the sacrifice worthwhile. The immediate impact of exposing the conspiracy was the arrest and prosecution of Colonel Harrison and 12 other officers involved in the weapons trafficking operation, leading to convictions that resulted in lengthy prison sentences and the recovery of millions of dollars in stolen military equipment. The scandal sent shockwaves through the military establishment and led to comprehensive reforms in oversight and accountability procedures. Maya's official status was restored, and she was recognized for her extraordinary service during the 10 years she had spent protecting American forces while gathering evidence of corruption. Her story became an inspiration for military personnel who understood the importance of placing honor and integrity above personal safety and career advancement. Bell's military career ended as expected, but his role in exposing the conspiracy earned him respect from honest military professionals who understood the courage required to challenge corrupt leadership. His sacrifice was recognized through civilian honors and the gratitude of soldiers whose lives had been saved by his willingness to pursue justice. The long-term impact of the conspiracy's exposure led to fundamental changes in military oversight procedures and the establishment of new protections for whistleblowers who reported corruption and criminal activity. Maya's case became a model for how dedicated individuals could expose institutional corruption even when facing overwhelming odds and powerful enemies. The scandal also led to broader discussions about military accountability and the importance of maintaining ethical standards even in the most challenging operational environments. The lessons learned from Maya's investigation influenced training programs and policy development throughout the military establishment. Bell and Maya established a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting military whistleblowers and exposing corruption within defense institutions, continuing their fight for justice and accountability in new roles that allowed them to serve their country without the constraints of military hierarchy. 5 years after exposing the conspiracy that had kept her officially dead, Maya Rodriguez stood beside David Bell at the dedication of a memorial honoring soldiers who had died fighting corruption and injustice within their own institutions. The ceremony was attended by hundreds of military personnel who understood that the greatest threats to military effectiveness often came from within, rather than from external enemies. "We kept our promise," Maya said quietly, referring to the oath they had both taken to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. "It cost us our careers, but we saved lives and preserved honor." Bell nodded, understanding that their sacrifice had been worthwhile. Some battles are worth fighting regardless of the personal cost. This was one of them. Their war for justice had been won, proving that truth and integrity could prevail even against the most powerful enemies when soldiers remained committed to the values that made military service a calling rather than just a career.